Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about another brilliant novel by Vladimir Nabokov, and that is Despair. Despair is a story about a story. It's about somebody so obsessed with making their life seem literary that they do insane things. It's told through first-person perspective from the point of view of Hermann, who is a middle-aged German businessman. He's quite successful, and one day he comes across a homeless man that looks exactly like him. And he gets the idea to try and convince this homeless man to swap lives and places with him. Here's the opening paragraph. If I were not perfectly sure of my power to write and of my marvelous ability to express ideas with the utmost grace and vividness, so, more or less, I had thought of beginning my tale. Further, I should have drawn the reader's attention to the fact that had I lacked that power, that ability, etc., not only should I have refrained from describing certain recent events, but there would have been nothing to describe. For, gentle reader, nothing at all would have happened. Silly, perhaps, but at least clear. The gift of penetrating life's devices, innate disposition toward the constant exercise of the creative faculty could alone have enabled me. At this point, I should have compared the breaker of the law, which makes such a fuss over a little spilt blood, with a poet or a stage performer. But, as my poor left-handed friend used to put it, philosophic speculation is the invention of the rich. Down with it. Now, isn't that so much fun? So Vladimir Nabokov wrote Despair in Russian originally in 1932, and it got published a few years later. Now, when it was published in England, it coincided with the start of World War II, so nobody paid much attention to it. The version I recommend you all read is Nabokov's retranslation, because he added some pretty scandalous scenes to it that could not be included previously. In Nabokov's foreword to Despair, he writes, "Despair, in kinship with the rest of my books, has no social comment to make, no message to bring in its teeth. It does not uplift the spiritual organ of man, nor does it show humanity the right exit." This is so true, and this is true of, I'd say, all of Nabokov's fiction, especially Lolita, which I'm going to make a video on. Nabokov just writes fascinating, fun, entertaining stories, sometimes with tragic elements, of course, but he's not preaching or moralizing like pretty much ever. Here are some literary aspects I recommend you keep your eyes peeled for. First, Felix, the homeless man, he uses a walking stick, and his walking stick has a little notch on it. The narrator draws our attention to it. Now, the Russian word used to describe this notch is glazok, which implies that the notch is eye-shaped. And this, of course, evokes the motif of vision, of sight. That's something that gets lost in translation. Now, weather is a running motif throughout this novel. Wind and thunder and hurricanes, like this is all the backdrop of Hermann's tale. There's always some stuff going on with the weather that's worth paying attention to. That also relates to a pun in the English translation. So hurricane obviously has the word cane, another word for walking stick, which is kind of Felix's main symbol. And then also despair, of course, has the word pear in it. Now, wind is also a significant presence in the Hebrew Bible. You might be aware that Adam hides behind foliage when he hears the wind, in which God manifests his divine presence. So in the same way that God appears in the wind in the Bible, the author, Nabokov, appears in wind in his story. We see this especially when Hermann describes an invisible glove playing with smoke. What a ornate way to just talk about a breeze. And of course, that's because that invisible hand is the author's hand, guiding us towards certain conclusions, guiding his characters towards certain fates. We have this rivalry between Nabokov, the true author, and Herman, the would-be author, who tries so desperately to fashion things out of his life, but ultimately has less control than he imagines. Of course, Herman evokes the Greek myth of Narcissus falling in love with his own reflection. He is obsessed with the fact that he's found someone that looks just like him. And there's a scene where Felix takes Herman's pen and pockets it. And this, of course, is a brilliant power play between the two men. Who really has control here? Who has authority? Is it Herman over Felix? Is it the other way around? Is it neither of them? Now, if you've watched my previous videos, you'll know that Nabokov often engaged in debates with modernist culture, or like practices of Russian modernism happening. And one of those practices is this idea of life creation, жизнь творчества, which is essentially when writers would try and pretend, they would try and make their life so artistic, to live life like characters in a book. Now, whenever Nabokov's characters try to do that, they get punished for it. And you'll see how that plays out in this particular novel. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in Nabokov, I've made some other videos about him, and I'm gonna make a few more. Also, please feel free to comment what kind of videos you'd like to see. I know somebody mentioned they want more Dostoevsky, so I'll be sure to make some more videos on him. But yeah, I hope you have a brilliant day, and I hope you give this book a chance. Okay, take care.